For the GameWithWit.com, this is Mike V. We are here at PAX South 2017 here at MetaArcade. I am with
David Reid.
Okay, so what do we have here today, David?
Yeah, so MetaArcade, we have built a platform that will allow anybody who can write a story to create, publish, and play their own adventure game without any narrative, without any technical or artistic skills required. All you're doing is writing your narrative.
Right.
And it's a platform that now runs on iOS, Android, PC, and Mac. We've started with the second role-playing game ever published, Tunnels and Trolls, which came out after Dungeons and Dragons back in 1975. Yeah. And we've got it running now on, here in the booth, Android tablets, where people are playing some of the adventures we've been making before. But more exciting, we've got the adventure creator here live that we're demoing for the first time. And we're asking people at PAX South to pop on up, add their room to the adventure. And after PAX South, we'll send it out to everybody and everyone can play it. You can leave your name and your Twitter handle or whatever you want in there so people will know that room came from you.
So can you tell us a bit more about the adventure creator?
Absolutely. So, the idea really came to me from a perspective of I've been in games a long time. I've mostly been selling and marketing other people's games and had the itch to create my own, but really I am not technical anymore. I've never been an artist of any level of quality and started to think about how could I create a game and realize that, well, storytelling was the way I could do it. Like a lot of RPG players, I've written plenty of stories over the years, characters and worlds filled with, filling up my notebooks and such. Started thinking about things that are happening in the market today, things like a WordPress, which allow anybody to make a website, even if you don't have any technical skills, and got inspired to try and create that idea, that WordPress-style system where I could sit down and I could type in my narrative. And then in a typical choose-your-own-adventure style, I can decide what narrative choices there are. Do I fight or do I flee? Do I try to bribe the guard or do I try to backstab them or sneak by them? All those kinds of ideas. And then from there, giving everybody a chance to look at art and say, okay, well, what kind of art makes sense here and have a big archive of art? Taking a listen to audio, all the different audio effects. We have music soundtracks, we have ambient noise, are you in a city, are you in a forest, are you in a cave? And we have sound effects, did you get hit by a sword, did you pick up some treasure? All that stuff is in there, and now as I go through the process, and people are doing it here, for each of these rooms that they create, they get to type in the narrative they want, they get to pull in art, they get to pull in audio, compile it and run it and see it on the big screen here.
So I was reading through the press release. They said something about revenue stream or revenue.
Yes.
About that?
So the ultimate plan here is that, and we're still very much in early access on all this, but the idea is that you'll create an adventure and then we can get it out there for you on the App Store, Google Play, Steam, and other digital platforms. And then each time somebody plays your adventure, there'll be revenue generated. And that'll be revenue that'll come to you in the same way that Steam Workshop operates right now, right? You make a Team Fortress 2 hat, somebody buys it, Valve gives you a slice of that revenue. The current thinking right now is that a lot of the adventures we expect will be sort of a freemium model, right? The ability to try it for free, and then ultimately there'll be a way to purchase it. And when you do, or when somebody does, when somebody plays your adventure and advertising is generated, or somebody plays your adventure and decides to purchase it, then you get a big slice of that revenue, just like the Steam Workshop model. And that's something we want to get done this year, and I think we'll be in sort of call it friends and family testing on that front with our first creators in Q1, Q2 for sure.
Okay, so you mentioned Tunnels and Trolls. So how did that come about?
Well, I for a number of reasons, and I won't be shy in admitting that one of the reasons is I'm a lifelong Tunnels and Trolls player. I grew up in that era of early RPGs, and as much as you had a lot of Dungeons and Dragons out there, it was a game that always required a group. Right? Whereas Tunnels and Trolls was the first RPG to create solitaire adventures where in the event you didn't have a group, you had this as an alternative to group play, and a lot of those early adventures just really stuck with me, just kind of like the power of narrative, the interesting sort of dilemmas, the fact that like in a choose your own adventure, you make a bad choice and you're going to die, right? That it had a lot of risk associated with it, and I enjoyed that. So, as I started thinking about the kinds of things I'd like to do, I realized, well, number one, I have a lot of affinity for this game, but as I really started thinking about the platform and the development process, it's like, well, Tunnels and Trolls is a very sort of thin and yet flexible rule system, right? You've got combat, you've got saving rolls, it extends in kind of any genre. There have been modern era spin-offs and science fiction spin-offs. It just felt like the right place to start. And, part of the blast of doing this for me is getting to meet people like Ken St. Andre, who created the game, and the Naked Doom adventure here, Rick Loomis, the original publisher, working with Liz Danforth and Steve Crompton, bringing in brand new art that has never been done before, just specifically for MetaArcade adventures. It's a game that I have a lot of personal affinity for, but on this other side of letting anybody who can write a story create their own solitaire adventure, it was just the perfect rule system to get started with.
Yeah, because it seems, from what I played just right now, it seems a little bit more easier to like anybody can just like go right and not just play it, but also from what I've researched, there's other platforms just the same, but you gotta have like an extensive knowledge of the dungeon master. You gotta have like your dungeon master book, and then you gotta have your monster manual, and then if you want to use a different monster from a different book, you gotta have that book.
Exactly.
This is more like a little bit simplified.
Yes, it is. It is sort of a very primal fantasy from kind of like the early days of gaming, where the narrative was really important and your choices were really important, and there weren't a lot of rules mechanics to complicate things. Now that said, right, if you think back to that era, Tunnels and Trolls was created in a bit of a reaction. If you were to talk to Ken St. Andre, he would tell you that he felt some of the early rules of some of these early games were a little complicated, right? And they were descended from the origins of tabletop wargaming, right? Before there was a role-playing game, we were all playing Napoleonic miniatures, and you'd go into a hobby shop on the weekend and everybody's got their rulers out and they're measuring movement and things, and even in like early Dungeons and Dragons, movement rate was done in inches because that's how you knew how to move your miniatures along and things like that. And Ken's vision was to create a role-playing game that was more like reading a Marvel comic than playing an old war game, right? Fast action, interesting characters, difficult narrative choices and dilemmas and things like that, and that's really sort of the spirit of what we're doing here. I think in a lot of places, right, if you're looking for something with a little more crunch and complexity and things like that, there are a lot of alternatives out there. But if you're thinking about something where the narrative shines and your ability to be creator and making decisions as a player shine, Tunnels and Trolls was pretty hard to beat, and it was just a perfect way for us to get this started.
So can you tell us a little bit about the mega adventure that we have right now?
Yeah. So the mega adventure is something that we are debuting the adventure creator here for the first time, and as we started thinking about what to do, realized that, hey, why not have all the PAX attendees come in and leave their mark and create their room? So basically what we're doing is we've created this mega adventure where we start, we give you your character and your equipment, and it just begins, and we have people come up. Some people have ideas of the room they want to create, and we help them do that. Some people don't, and we just hit random and pick up a random image, and we're like, okay, here's an interesting image. What's happening in this adventure? What's happening in this thing right now? And that gets people going, like, ooh, all right, I think here's a path, here's a fight, here's a saving roll. I've got to figure out how to do this, and continue through the adventure that way. And then we wrap up each of these little mini adventures with a teleport portal, so when you write the next one, you don't have to worry about what's come before. And this is leading through a path where people are coming up, they're writing their scenes, they're picking their art and their audio, putting it together, and then leaving their name in there, if they choose, to sort of signal that out to people like, hey, this is the one I made. And then at the end of PAX, we're going to issue this out to everybody who's on the sneak peek, and people who are currently playing Naked Doom and Buffalo Castle in our community are going to be able to take their characters through the PAX South Mega Adventure. And this is going to be a lot of fun because, we're prototyping and testing this out with people right here live. If we haven't run into any big issues yet, but if we do, everybody here is going to be part of helping us troubleshoot them and giving us feedback on them.
Nice. So how can how can people participate in the the alpha beta test?
Exactly. Yeah. So we call it our sneak peek right now, and it's equivalent to an alpha. And the best way to do it is to just go to metaarcade.com and sign up there. We got an email blank there. Just send us your email. We'll get in touch and figure out if you want to be on initially iOS or Android. PC and Mac are coming pretty soon, and so people will be able to play on their computers as well. And that's going to be important because the adventure creator itself, we believe, is something it's a better experience on a computer than trying to type your narrative on a smartphone or something like that. And so that's the fastest way to get in. We also have all of our news there and update our news page regularly. We've got our social feeds at MetaArcade on Facebook and Twitter for people who like to keep in the know that way. But to get into the community, all you got to do is register, and we've been bringing people in, ever since we opened this up a few months ago.
All right. So that's going to be wrapping it up. I want to thank you for...
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. And... if you want to, if you want to jump on in and test out the game, or if you want to leave a piece of PAX history here with the MetaArcade, just come on down throughout the weekend and create an adventure with them.
Outstanding.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.